All right, game 3, the team the Blue Devils beat this past week, North Carolina Tar Heels. They're back home at Kenan Stadium taking on 4-0 Pittsburgh, noon on ESPN2. The Panthers, 3-point road favorites this week.
Yeah, there's no need to sugarcoat it. 73-year-old UNC coach Mac Brown has a football-style crisis on his hands in Chapel Hill. I say football-style crisis because Hurricane Helene and its aftermath left real-world crises in its wake. Now it's an undefeated Pitt team coming to Kenan Stadium, as you said, with a lot of confidence, just as the Tar Heels have tens of thousands of frustrated alumni descending upon Chapel Hill for the school's annual homecoming weekend. Immediately after the Tar Heels' 3-0 start, which, remember, did include a solid road win at Minnesota of the Big Ten, the Heels gave up that school record 70 points at home in the loss to James Madison. And then, as we just explored, they coughed up the 20-0 third-quarter lead to Duke in what became that second biggest comeback in the history of Blue Devils football. In the JMU game, remember, since this matchup with Pitt is at Kenan, that was a family weekend in Chapel Hill, and tens of thousands of Carolina fans headed for the exits by halftime of that game. Pitt's coach, Pat Narduzzi, had by far the worst season of his 10-year tenure in the Steel City last year, when the Panthers had an anemic offense and truly horrible quarterback play on the way to a 3-9 record. Thanks in part to a talent infusion, including an Alabama quarterback transfer and several key figures who were important parts of Western Carolina's impressive football season a year ago. Pitt is putting up some big offensive numbers and already has impressive comeback victories over two of its regional rivals in non-conference play, Cincinnati and West Virginia. The Panthers are averaging, wait for these numbers, 48 points and 523 yards per game. Both of those numbers rank behind only Miami among ACC teams. They are doing it, the Panthers, under the direction of first-year offensive coordinator Cade Bell, son of Western Carolina head football coach Kerwin Bell, and the Catamounts' former offensive coordinator, of course. And they're doing it with former Western Carolina running back Desmond Reed rushing for more than 100 yards per game on about 7 yards per carry. After suffering through that horrendous QB play that I mentioned last season, Pitt has received a huge lift from redshirt freshman Eli Holstein, an Alabama transfer who was a big-time prep star in Louisiana before signing with the Crimson Tide out of high school. Holstein has been a true dual threat for the Panthers, averaging almost 50 rushing yards per game and almost 300 passing yards per game. His favorite targets have been wide receivers Kanata Mumfield and Kenny Johnson, who can fly and also is a return man, plus Desmond Reed as a receiver out of the backfield. The Tar Heels will have their hands full in this one, especially defensively. In terms of the X's and O's, the most fascinating aspect of this matchup to me will come when the Tar Heels have the ball. The one thing this Carolina team does consistently well is run the ball. As a team, the Heels are averaging an ACC best 209 rushing yards per game, and individually, UNC's All-American running back Omarion Hampton, the junior, ranks #1 nationally with 114 carries and #5 nationally with about 132 rushing yards per game. Under Narduzzi, who, remember, was a longtime defensive coordinator at Michigan State before he took the Pitt head coaching job, the Panthers tend to stack the box on defense and dare you to try to throw the ball downfield, where their defensive backs play as physically and with as much physical contact as any defense I have seen in my 38 years covering this league. Pitt's opponents are averaging less than 3 yards per carry on the ground so far this season, so it will be interesting to see if, #1, Omarion Hampton can get going against another defense that's designed specifically to slow him down, and #2, whether Carolina's fifth-year senior quarterback, the former third stringer Jacoby Criswell, can make enough big passing plays downfield against that style of defense I described to make Pitt pay for stacking the box. Criswell is playing behind an offensive line that has had problems with pass blocking all season, but he does have a strong arm, excellent tight ends in Bryson Nesbitt and John Copenhaver, and a few quality wide receivers led by another recent DG Show guest, J.J. Jones.
All right, let's wrap up this opening segment.